Locurto.
You said it perfectly.
Thank you. I've been practicing. So, I met Steve through John Cantor, who used to attend the class years ago, if you remember John. John taught a class in the evenings, I don't know, 3-4 years ago, and we attended together. And then Barbara and Karen met during one of the women's
exchange.
exchanges. That was it. So now I think I've been promoting this as your Messianic Jews. Is that an okay term, or would you prefer something else?
I like Hebrew Christians
Hebrew
better.
Christians. Oh, I like that.
I always, I like to put the emphasis on the Christian. Not that we're not still Jewish, of course we are. We always will be. But I just always, sometimes the Messianic comes in. Those are more people that are trying to hold on to their Judaism. And like Messianic congregations are usually ones that still meet on the on Friday night or Saturday, right? What'd you say?
Yeah.
Or and just kind of holding on a little bit more to the Torah, right? The laws, not because they feel they have to do it to be saved, but because I guess they feel more comfortable. And we tried that route when we first came to the Lord. We went to a Messianic. This is when we lived in California, and we just really wanted to be. The man who led me to the Lord said to me, "Do 2 things: go home, read the book of John, and find yourself a good Bible-believing church." So that was the big thing, you know. So that's why I say Hebrew Christians, but we are Messianic Jews. I mean, we're Jews that believe in the Messiah.
We're Messianic Jews, completed Jews. Paul calls us the Israel of God.
I love that.
Yeah, I like
I
that.
love that.
Can everyone hear? Okay.
And
Feel free to yell loud.
we're the remnant. That's another
Yeah,
way we
I
was
refer
thinking
to
about
the
that this
Bible a
morning.
lot.
Yeah.
That's who you are.
That's who I am.
Yes.
You told me you wanted
Remember
to
I
be a Hebrew
told you about the
Christian.
woman at the retreat?
Yes, the Israel of God.
And she wanted to know what we would call, and that's why I know you.
Yeah.
Okay. We're old.
She hugged you like you were old friends.
We are. I knew it. Okay. Now I know. Because as soon as I said that to you. Okay.
Okay,
Good.
so before we get into your testimony, just tell us a little bit about, like, what part of Texas were you born and raised in?
Yeah. The New York part.
And your family, like your children.
You go, because I'm, as you can see, I talk a lot.
Well, we were born and raised.
I might have to because he's hoarse.
Yeah.
Oh, I have water for you.
You got water?
I do.
Oh, okay.
All right, you can start.
We're born and raised I'm from Brooklyn, Barbara's from the Bronx, which is 2 boroughs in New York City. Okay? And we lived there for 29 years. Then we went out to California. We got married, we went to California, we lived in Los Angeles for 3 years, and then moved to San Diego and lived there for almost 40 years. And we're in Texas.
How long have you been in Texas? Yeah.
Oh, this month, next week, I think, is
The
8 years.
19th, the 19th of
It's 8
August
years.
is 8 years. But we have 2 children. We came to California with one of them, which was a year and a half. Our second child was born in California. That's where they were raised. And then after 40 years, we have a daughter, Dana and Brad Wyatt is our son-in-law, Brad, and our daughter, and 2 grandchildren who lived here. And we always thought we would end up living closer to her when we retired. And I'm not going to go into the circumstances of why we moved here when we did, but we did. And that happened 8 years ago.
And their daughter, your granddaughter, sings in the worship team.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And was singing last week. So if
She
you're
sang
here
last week, yeah. Yeah,
Very
she
talented.
goes to DBU. She's graduating from DBU this year. And she's
Sarah Wyatt, yeah.
So where would you call home now?
Windsong Ranch. That's where we live. Prosper, Texas. Yeah. Yeah, no, this is home. This is home. We don't know, obviously only the Lord knows, if our next stop is going to be heaven or if we're going to move someplace else here first. I don't know. But no, we're here. We're happy being here. yeah, that's pretty
So,
much
so
what
let's start
happened.
with you. Tell us
My background.
about your background, your growing up.
Okay, our backgrounds are different, and that's, interesting. But I was born into a Orthodox Jewish family. I mean, I literally did not know people who weren't Jewish. I was in a Jewish neighborhood. When I say Orthodox, I don't mean that we were Torah observant when we try, all that. But we were in a way, and my grandmother really was. My mother had 2 sets of dishes. We didn't eat food that wasn't kosher in the house, but we ate it out of the house. And that's why I'm saying, but my grandmother didn't. So a truly observant Jew wouldn't do that, but we did. But all of our friends were Jewish. When I went to school, I went all the way through college. I became a teacher. I got my master's degree. And I really had no friends or no people in my life who weren't Jewish. And I never heard about Jesus. I knew there was a Jesus. I knew nothing at all about him. I was never taught anything about him in school. I still, that kind of blows my mind. But it was such a, what could you call it? Like, what's am I thinking of? Like a little,
Tribe?
yeah, I guess. I don't know, but we, basically we stayed together.
Did you ever go out with a non-Jew?
No. And I didn't even when I met you.
Really?
Even though his father wasn't Jewish.
Were you in public schools or a private school?
Public school, yeah. This was all public school. And, in the neighborhoods, those are the only people I knew. So I didn't know anything. And the first time I was introduced to Jesus was once we left New York and moved to California. And that's when it began. And I have a little thing that the gentleman who interviewed us the last time, years ago, we did a radio broadcast. And the way he described it was, he goes, that I was like Abraham, that I had to leave the country I was in order to move and be where he wanted me to be and find the Lord. Because if I had stayed in New York with all the pressure of my family and everything else, the Lord knew it wasn't going to happen, but I was chosen to believe in him, and he took me out of my country and brought me to California, where I met people who shared the Lord with me.
So could you explain a little bit about Orthodox Judaism? So to us,
Yeah.
it's a bit of a blur. So
Right.
there's Reformed, right, which are quite liberal and maybe don't even believe in God.
Exactly, right.
But
It's
are there-
Orthodox is the most, well, actually, you
It's
go there.
biblical Judaism.
He's good like that.
Orthodox.
Okay.
All the others, Reconstructionism, conservative, and Reformed, are not Jewish at all.
So-
They're man-made. It's a man-made religion.
Our stereotype of a New York Jew is a black hat and a
Oh yeah, that's the Hasidim.
That's the Hasidim.
So
And that's
one-
Orthodox.
That's
very
truly
Orthodox.
But that's not what you grew up
That
with.
you would never.
No.
Yeah.
I was the step.
So
under
your
that.
father would wear a yarmulke on holidays or?
On holidays, yes, but only on
Yeah.
holidays. And basically what I called it was more like traditional Jew. We observed the holidays, we did things like changing dishes for Passover and those kinds of things. Basically, we did the easy things and celebrated the happy things, but didn't really live the life of not the Hasidim at all. That wasn't, so it's like Hasidic, and then it's Orthodox, conservative, and Reformed.
Okay.
And, according to the Orthodox or the Hasidic, the Reformed aren't even Jewish, They're Jewish because they were born Jewish.
Right. And that's kind of a perennial question, is what does it mean to be a Jew? Is it a religion or is it ethnicity or is it
That's
both?
been going on for a while.
Yeah, so it depends on which sect you're in, right?
Yeah,
how you
right.
do it. Yeah.
Mostly the Orthodox and the Hasidic, those are the people with the black hats and,
Right.
Yeah.
and the beards and the payas and the grass shawls. They're like, I guess they're like the Pharisees in
Oh, yeah,
Jesus'
okay.
day. And that's biblical Judaism. They try to follow biblical Judaism.
But they're also following the oral law, right? Which is added on to
Yeah.
the Torah.
Yeah.
The Talmud.
That's
Oh,
the
the
Talmud.
The Talmud.
Okay.
They
And-
basically follow what the rabbis teach them.
Okay.
Most Jewish people don't even read the Bible. They don't even read the Old Testament. They just know
Yeah.
the stories, the big stories, Moses, and don't even really believe, a lot of them don't even believe that necessarily that those are real. That's a big part of my testimony is my family, my Jewish family, and finding out that when we accepted, I found out they had no clue as to what Judaism really meant because they never read. We started studying the Bible like you people do, and I mean, I was horrified when I found out that my father. You really believe that the Red Sea parted? You really, like none of that, because it was all, remember?
Yeah.
I mean, it was a big eye opener for me. But tell about your background.
Yeah, Steve,
And then
if you
then we'll bring it up.
Well, my father was born in Italy, raised Catholic, actually at a Catholic orphanage, and no spiritual side to him at all. No. And when he found out that I was going to go to Hebrew school and be Jewish, I was Jewish.
His mother was Jewish.
Yeah.
My mother, not Orthodox, but my grandparents were pretty religious. All right? But anyway,
All of the children married out of the Jewish faith.
yeah, all their daughters married Italian men. That's the truth.
That's true.
That's
Wow.
true. There's three daughters. They married 3 Italian men. I was Jewish, but I studied Judaism because of my mother. I usually try to do everything my mother said growing up.
So,
okay?
so that's an Italian thing, right?
What?
That the sons follow what the mother says,
Yeah.
right? Did you call your mother every day?
Actually, that was really more Jewish.
Yeah.
The Jewish mother wanted.
Yeah,
Was gonna make sure.
she wanted me to go to Hebrew school. I had no idea what Hebrew
What it
school
was.
was. 8, 9 years old, something like that. And so I asked my father, and he said, whatever your mother wants.
Do
He
what
said,
your mother
"Fine.
says."
Do what your mother said. That was fine with me. So I went to Hebrew school for 5 years.
Wow.
3 times a week at a very orthodox
And
synagogue.
after regular school.
After regular
So
school,
this is
yeah, it
extra
started
homework
like
for you.
4-ish.
Wow.
You're home by 3 and it starts at 4:15 to 5:15.
And it was hard for him. He's in a whole Italian Catholic neighborhood,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden, this Jewish boy is coming into
Yeah.
a synagogue, and his friends want to know, "What are you doing? What is
Yeah.
that?" And he did. But he actually, coming from a home that wasn't Orthodox, he knows much more than I do still to this day, because he really studied. He knew how to read Hebrew.
I took
he
to
got
it
more
pretty good and I
training.
liked it. But the people in the synagogue didn't take to me too well. They first wanted to know, what are you? Locurto? That is not a Jewish name. I said, no, it's not. And he said, so why are you doing here? So I had to explain myself to them. And I had some friends, but not a lot of friends. Actually, the people that liked me the most was my mother's friends. My mother had a lot of Jewish friends, and they were thrilled.
They loved
And
hearing him
they loved
say
hearing me
the
talk
folk,
and
yeah.
sing and
Because he knew
whatever.
Hebrew.
Yeah, I was
You're a celebrity.
I was celebrity
So
in my mother's family.
in the Jewish
My father
family.
didn't want to know anything about it. He says,
But he was fine with it.
yeah, he wasn't against it. He says, hey, be
You
like a
married?
politician. When you're with Jewish people, be Jewish. When you're with
I actually told him that.
Catholic people, you never mention Gentile, they would say Catholic. And so, you got a last name, and you can be that.
That's
So-
another thing, as a Jewish person, there's no difference in their minds, and there wasn't in mine, between being Gentile, Christian, Catholic, Methodist, it was all not Jewish. So there were like two, and actually in the Bible too, you're either Gentile or you're Jewish, and so that was right. But that's how so for me to think that I could still be Jewish and believe in Jesus and be called a Christian, how can you be Christian and Jewish, but you
That's
can?
the biggest obstacle to most Jews.
I know.
I have to give up my Jewishness to be a Christian.
And you don't, of
And you
course.
don't.
if anything, you become, like Steve said, completed you. That you got the whole ball of wax.
But
really,
Jews
so
don't
to speak.
understand that.
No.
They don't understand a lot of things,
I mean, I always go to Acts, I don't know, the chapter or verse or whatever, but where if you look at the fighting that went on was because Gentiles weren't Jewish enough to become Christians, right? They wanted the Gentiles to be circumcised because in order to come and believe in Jesus and be part of the church, you had to become Jew. And I mean, I still shake my head and say, how sad
If
that.
you remember, that was a big rift between Paul and Peter. And
It's-
finally
it's-
Paul won out.
It's so sad
Yeah.
that
But
blindness.
even most of Paul's converts were proselytes that had joined Gentiles that had joined the synagogue.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So they were, and that's sort of been dawning on me recently is that, Christianity is the other religion of Judaism. It's a branch of Judaism.
It certainly was then, wasn't it?
Right, and so we to know Jesus, you first have to know Yahweh, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And none of us Gentiles would know that, but then the remnant of Israel believing in Yahweh and keeping that alive.
Yeah.
Basically, the people that study the Bible know the truth.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I love about being here, because when I came to this church and met the group of women I did in Bible study, I was astounded at how much they knew more about, biblical Judaism than I did. And I have grown as a Jewish woman, not just a Christian, since I'm here. Because you don't get that when you stay in a Jewish, I don't know, I keep wanting to think of a word.
Tribal community.
Never mind, that's not the one I want, but it'll have to do.
So Steve, I had another question for you. So in Jewish school, did you just study the Pentateuch, or did you study the?
Yes.
So not the
Yes.
prophets.
No, we never. Well, a little bit, but mostly the Pentateuch.
Yeah. So the
Which
history,
is the
King
Torah.
David,
Yeah,
David,
right.
Solomon.
Yeah, we learned a little bit about that. Mostly when you go to Hebrew school, you learn to read Hebrew, you learn to write Hebrew, and you get ready for your Haftorah, which is a section of the Bible. And in my case, it was Isaiah, not 53.
Oh, really? Okay,
Yeah,
not 53.
Yeah, not 53. No. I didn't learn about Isaiah 53 till well after that. Nobody's teaching you that in Hebrew
Yeah.
school. But you have to go through a portion of scripture on a Sabbath day, and you have to read it like a cantor.
That's
You
your bar mitzvah.
basically
That's a bar
that's a
mitzvah.
bar mitzvah, and you sing it.
Yeah.
You know,
Which
if
is
you ever
very
seen-
beautiful, I've heard.
It's very beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you ever seen it, been to a synagogue and see it, the cantors are like entertainers.
Have you ever heard John Cantor sing?
You ever hear John
He's got
Cantor?
he has
John
a
Cantor can
beautiful
really
voice.
do it.
But John
Yeah.
Cantor could have been a cantor.
Could have been
Wow.
a cantor.
Yeah, he's got-
How ironic.
If he was a rabbi. Yeah.
If he was a
yeah.
rabbi, right.
So the whole last year, I would have special lessons with the head rabbi, learning how to sing this, and it was like 15 minutes or something like that.
And what did you
Wow.
have to do? You were living in a
Oh,
big part.
yeah. Then because of my last name, and I wasn't a pure
Yeah.
Jew, according to them, I had to go to Greenpoint, which is a very orthodox area in Brooklyn, where all the Hasidim live. And they took me there on an afternoon during the week. The rabbi, my teacher, and whatever, we got in the car and we drove to this YMCA. And back then, I don't know how.
You had to go to the
like that.
YMCA to get a pool.
You had to get a pool. I had to get to a pool. I had to get
People didn't have
a
pools.
mikvah.
And he had to have what's called a mikvah.
Yeah, and all the YMCA's back then, I don't know how it was here or whatever, you had to be naked. Everybody was naked in the YMCA. And certainly I was.
Well, when they were swimming, when
When
they were
we're
in the
swimming,
water.
I mean, you
That's
go
what
in
I'm
with
talking about.
clothes.
No, but he.
And there I am in the pool with these several
Old
rabbis, naked rabbis. All right?
This is
And,
more information than we need.
Yeah.
Very,
It was very traumatic.
Right.
I'm sure. To this day, I don't go in the pool. So I went and I had a mikvah where they would pray over me and dunk me and bring me up again and pray over me more.
Oh, wow.
I had no idea what was going on.
It's like a baptism. But
Yeah, it's like,
Now,
yeah.
Weren't there mikvahs in Jesus' time?
Oh, yeah,
outside
there were
the temple,
mikvahs,
right?
yeah, there were mikvahs.
But
And
let me say one thing.
Well.
The reason you had to do it was because you were in an Orthodox temple. He was being
I couldn't
bar
get- I
mitzvahed in
couldn't
an
get
Orthodox
bar
temple.
mitzvahed unless
They
I had a
wouldn't do
mikvah.
it there unless he had the mikvah. And that was a big, it was good for me too, because when I met him and my parents heard his name, they weren't very happy about that.
No.
And when I told them, though his mother's last name was Lieberman, so,
There you go.
but he had the mikvah, and that was a big plus. That helped me get him in the door.
Yeah.
So that is essentially converting you from Catholicism.
Yeah.
Basically,
to
and it, of
Orthodox
course,
Judaism.
yeah. But of course, he was Jewish because
Yeah.
all you have to have is one parent.
Well, I
You
was
have to
told
have-
even that it's really more important to have the mother too, right?
Yeah.
But that's not
That's not,
biblical.
okay.
That is Jewish, right?
That's Jewish tradition,
Yeah.
whatever.
In-
That's
in-
like Timothy, right?
yeah,
Timothy was a
right.
perfect example.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Timothy was brought up, we don't know exactly how Timothy, but well, it said his
His
mother
mother,
and
Eunice,
his
is
grandmother
Jewish. Yeah,
taught him
Lois.
Judaism.
Mhm.
Yeah. And to me, Timothy was Jewish,
Yeah.
but not to Paul. Remember, they had to get him circumcised to go to the temple in Jerusalem.
So that it wasn't a problem for him.
So it wasn't going to be an
Yeah.
issue.
It wasn't, yeah.
Exactly.
So that's kind of like the mikveh for
Yeah.
you, just to get
Right.
you. Yeah.
So Timothy was very Jewish. Yeah.
Okay, so how did you two meet?
How did we meet?
We met on a blind date. He had a high school basketball coach who I met on vacation.
I gotta get my family home, but.
Oh, okay.
Okay. I was a teacher in New York. He was actually a policeman in New York. And I went away and met this couple, lovely couple, and they said, oh, we have somebody to, you know, and it's a kind of silly story, but I'm not going to tell it. We met.
Yeah.
We went on a date. We went, and within 14 months from then, we got married.
Yeah.
But
So was your coach Jewish?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Joel Diamond. I met him when I was 12 years ago, 12 years old, right? And he even went to my bar mitzvah, okay? And I stayed
And
close
you went.
with him right up until now.
Okay.
And he's 90.
Wow.
yeah, we're still in
92.
touch.
We're still in touch. He's
So,
92.
so I'm not gonna let you get away with what happened on the first date.
Okay.
What did he-
You like that
What
part,
did
huh?
Steve tell you, if you don't mind?
I know, I don't blame you. We actually were going to Joel and Barbara's house for dinner. She had decided to invite us. We had met alone first. I was a teacher. We decided he would pick me up and just go to lunch. That way, if it didn't work, it was only an hour. So we did that, and it was very pleasant and very nice. So that Saturday night, we were going to Joel and Barbara's house, and I don't know how it came up exactly, but he ended up saying something about, well, you know, I'd never marry a Jewish girl. And I looked at him and said, who asked you? I mean, you know, like, why do I even care? But it became pretty,
I never even went out with a Jewish girl.
it was a lie. He married a Jewish girl. And he became more Jewish than well, he can't be more Jewish, but more knowledgeable. And even to this day, I mean, it's easy for me to talk about relationships and things like that, but when it comes to scripture, I mean, I know scripture, and I know story, but he remembers it better than I do. He's just, maybe it is because of that period in his life when he was learning Hebrew and all that, but he just, you know, yeah. So, I mean, once my parents met him and got to know him, they couldn't not think of him as Jewish. His father had passed away and I never met his father. And so his mother was the representative of the family and she was
She was
Jewish. So it wasn't really an issue after that. Until, well, when we had children, it was like, well, we're gonna have, you know, do you guys know what a bris is? It's the circumcision, but it's the ceremony that goes with the circumcision. And we were not planning to do that. We were planning to circumcise our son, but not, you know. And so there were a lot of things like that that came up. But I could jump to the end, but I don't
Yeah, so
want to,
let's,
because the end is.
so you lived how many years in New York after you were married, and then you moved to California?
We weren't very religious. We both
No.
believed in God, but we weren't very religious, and we weren't going to raise our kids anything because we weren't much.
You know, it was the old, like we were young, and so it was like, well, when they get to a certain age, they can choose,
Yeah.
which we know is not real. But that's the way we kind of looked at it. But like I said, when we moved out of New York, that's when our Christian journey began.
So tell us about
Yeah,
that.
until it began,
Religion wasn't a part of our lives.
religion wasn't a part of our lives. We know we wanted to get out of New York, and we did, and we went to LA for a few years. Yeah. Did we meet anybody in LA?
Our next door neighbors,
Oh,
we didn't even know it at the time. We know it, you know, looking back. Our next door neighbors were actually holding Bible studies in that apartment.
oh,
That was
yeah.
in LA.
That was in LA. You're right.
They were holding Bible studies, and we didn't know. People would come in the house and leave in the house. And I still wonder to this day, why didn't those people try to share with us? But I guess that it wasn't the time. We weren't ready, maybe. And until we moved to San Diego from Los Angeles, and that's what, you know, became our destination for 40 years. And that was when I met a woman in the neighborhood whose kids were friends with my kids, and Kathy said,
No, you're missing, you're missing the football player on this way.
oh, yeah, but, that's right. There was a football player first, also in San Diego, though.
She was
And
she
his-
was our immediate neighbor.
They were our neighbors. I met her at the pool, we were talking, and she's the first one who reacted to me being Jewish in a positive way. And just saying, wow, you know, how exciting that you're one of the chosen people. And I had heard that expression that we were chosen, but I had no idea what that meant at all. I really didn't. I'm almost ashamed to say it, but I didn't. Nobody ever told me. And she talked a little bit about it, but then her husband didn't make the team,
Yeah,
the
he got
Chargers.
cut by the
He was
Chargers,
trying
so
out
they
for the
left.
Chargers football team, and they left town. And that's when I met Kathy.
No,
We
then
moved to a house,
Yeah,
and I met Kathy, but it
our
was in
first
San
house,
Diego.
yeah.
And Kathy was this little adorable Mexican lady who was like a missionary. She was sharing the Lord with everybody, but when she found out I was Jewish, oh my gosh, she bought me my first Bible, and I was kind of annoyed with her. And I shared with him, I said, you're not gonna believe this. I said, but Kathy, I mean, all she's talking about is Jesus. I said, I don't even know what to say to her. And he said, really? And I thought he'd say, oh, let's, move. He said, really, I'd like to meet her. And we met her.
And she
then
changed
it
my life.
happened.
Yeah. She kept giving me pamphlets and things to read.
And a lot of things from
magazines.
Jewish believers.
All Jewish believers.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she witnessed to us. And because of a man by the name of Marvin Rosenthal, he used to be the head of Friends of Israel.
And we've
Yeah.
used his book on the Jewish feast.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And a fantastic man, wonderful man, and I read everything that he ever wrote. I listened to tape after tape, and I was hooked. Barbara was staying away from me at that time. Right?
Seriously,
Yeah.
you know, we have different personalities, and he just jumps into everything and gets very excited about it. Whatever he does, I say whatever he does, he overdoes. And I was trying to read about it and intellectually grasp it somehow. And And I'm not saying I'm smarter, because in reality, like I say, he retains more than I do. But I needed it from that perspective. I don't know why, it's the way God made me, I guess. And so he would be listening to these tapes he's talking about. He'd be driving in to the garage where we lived, and I would like hear it. And I would cringe, like he was home, and now this is all he could talk about. He became so consumed with it.
He's
I
not
mean,
even a believer at this point, actually.
No, not a
yet.
believer.
No, but
No.
he was just soaking it up.
I couldn't get enough.
He just, yeah.
And then Kathy gave me Right with God by John Blanchard, a little green book. And she said, read this. I think you might find this interesting. Okay. Never read a Christian book in my life. And that night, it was a Saturday night, the next morning was Palm Sunday. And I read this book straight through. Barbara was sleeping. And at the end, they gave the invitation. And I'm ready, God. I'm ready. And I'm praying to God. Barbara's laying right next to me, maybe snoring. I don't know. But-
Did he have to say that?
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to say you were out like a light. All right. And something came over me. I mean, I just felt like I was almost
It's called the
lifted
Holy
up.
Spirit.
It was the Spirit of God that came into me, and I was thrilled.
And I
It
have
was
to
wonderful.
tell you a funny thing. The first thing he did was he ran to the mirror to look and see
This
if
is
he had a
about
beard and looked
12:30,
like
1
Charlton
o'clock.
Heston
Yeah.
in Ten
I
Commandments.
thought I'd
He
have
thought
the
he was gonna
glow
look
that
different.
Charlton Heston
That's
had.
how, because he felt so
Because
different. and
We
he
all
thought he
saw
would look
that
different.
in Ten Commandments, right? And they couldn't look at Charlton Heston. And I kept looking, and no difference, whatever. And after a while, I calmed down and went to sleep. The next morning, 8 o'clock in the morning, 7, 8, whatever, I get up and I tell Barbara, and how did you react?
Oh, please, I didn't even know what he was talking about. I really didn't. But you ran up first to tell
Yeah,
Kathy.
they lived about a half a block
He
from us.
ran to them to
I said,
tell
I gotta
them.
go up and tell them. I know
And
they'll
of
be
course,
thrilled.
they were dancing and singing and happy, and
Yeah.
I was scared. I thought I was gonna lose him. That was it. I thought, now this is the division between us, and I'm just not on the same page as he is, and we were still fairly newlywed, not newlyweds, but young, and in our 30s, 40s, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I was 33.
Well, we had two children.
36.
Okay, I'll tell you, our kids were 7 and 4, okay? So we were still kind of had a whole life to go. And I thought, this is not gonna happen. I mean, there's a big difference.
And you're still very much in love, but this is.
I didn't like him at all.
But you didn't like him? Oh, really?
I wouldn't say that I even loved him, but yeah,
Oh,
sure.
really?
Sure did. No, it was hard. It was really hard. And the first thing in my mind is, how do I tell my parents? Okay. But also the other thing was, he wanted me to have what he had. So
So I doubled down on everything. I drove him even crazier. And the tapes got stronger.
But I did start reading books like Josh McDowell. I started reading those, like, things that I could hold on to,
And you're learning really you're learning Judaism maybe for the first time.
Exactly,
And then Christianity. What Jesus
And
said.
so I finally said, this kind of makes a little bit of sense. And Marvin Rosenthal was coming into San Diego. to speak.
There was one step first, though, I understand. You
Go.
took a trip home, right?
No, it was
That
after.
was after
Yeah.
I accepted. I
Yeah.
hadn't
She
accepted the
hasn't
Lord
accepted
yet.
yet.
Okay.
So
I
I
took-
find out that Marvin Rosenthal is teaching
Okay.
and preaching at a Baptist church in San Diego. I have no idea where it is, but I know the area, and I've never been to a church in my life. And so I got so excited. I told
This is the guy
Barbara.
you've been
She
listening
knew all about Marvin
I
Rosenthal.
was reading his things too,
Right.
listening. And so he was going to be speaking.
I
at the
said, he's
church.
coming next Sunday, May something, May 8th or whatever, and we have to go see him. And you remember.
I was willing to go.
But before that, I called his
Oh,
sister.
And my sister lived in San Francisco, and
Yeah.
he said, Judy, my sister kind of a little messed up. And he called her and he said, Judy, I would like you to fly down here and whatever he told her to do.
No questions asked, just come down
She got
here
on the plane, came
and
down,
stay with us.
and the three of us went to church that Sunday. And she was willing to go. And so we went and we heard Marvin speak the first message.
I said, sit down there, I'm gonna see if I can find him. Because I wanna talk to him and say, you have to speak to my sister-in-law.
He was gonna set it up, like
I'm
Marvin
setting it
needed
up,
his help.
you know? And I messed it up. I meet him in the lobby.
He didn't really, he just said, take it easy, take
Oh,
it easy.
gosh, I mean,
He
I'm
was so
going through the
excited.
roof. I got this pamphlet, it says a Jew twice born. And it's a young man, and I'm looking for this young man all over. But he's an older man now, and he doesn't look anything like this. So I meet this man in the lobby, and I said, have you seen this man before? And he said, that's me. I said, you're Marvin? And I just threw
Oh,
question after question. He said, take it easy.
Okay, so
He said,
he had to give the message, but he
Right.
said to him first, is there a way between services that we can have lunch?
"Mm,
And he explained, my wife and my sister-in-law here, they haven't accepted Jesus, but I want them, okay. He said, yeah, we'll find a place and we'll have lunch. And so we heard his first message. Was that Prophet Priest?
prophet, priest, and king. I'll never
Was it
forget.
evangelistic or?
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
Oh, gosh,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then he always gave an
An
invitation,
invitation,
like,
yeah.
not walk down the aisle kind of
Yeah.
thing, but, just, and so we heard this first message, and then we were trying to find a place, we ended up eating in Jack in the Box. But it didn't matter, because we sat down and my sister and I started asking him that. First question is, what about my grandmother? And because my grandmother was like the most beautiful, wonderful Jewish lady, and about going to heaven, and he said, we're worrying about you, it's between you and the Lord. He said, he goes, my mother, Doug, not his mother, his mother, who wasn't in his family that had
His grandma.
Oh, his grandmother also, it was his grandmother.
No, his
too.
mother believed before him.
Yes, that's right, it was his grandmother. But he said, that's not what we're interested in. We want to know about your relationship and just focus on you and the Lord. But we asked him a lot of questions, and he was it was wonderful. And then we went back to the church and we heard the second message, and I know what it was, but I can't think of it now. And at the end of the message, I very quietly accepted the Lord. It was amazing, right? So I'm in the back seat of the car where we leave the church, and I'm dying to tell Steve, but I didn't, I wouldn't. And then we were talking, and my sister, louder than me and quicker than me, told Steve, she goes, Steve, I just accepted Jesus when Marvin asked me. And I'm in the back seat, and I said, so did I. So my sister and I both accepted the Lord on the same day at the same time. Her story isn't as beautiful as mine. It's her story, and that's for another time. Okay, so she didn't live near us, so she never got involved in anything. But so we rejoiced. It was wonderful. I'm saying, okay, now my parents are coming to visit. What am I gonna do? I have to go there first and tell them. They lived in New York still, and I was in California. So he puts me on a plane with the kids. And again, he was in California, and we were in New York, and he totally orchestrated who I visited, when I got there, what I did. He called my parents and told them at one point, okay, Barbara has something to tell you. She's coming back from our friend's house right now, and she needs to, and I know you love her, just listen, just listen. So he prepared them. The Lord prepared him, and then he prepared them. And I went, and I told them my story, and I told them what I believe. And I thought my mother was, I didn't know. I had, played it out in my head how they were going to react and all that. But God took care of it. And what ended up happening is they basically told us, okay. And you know why it was okay? because I was in California, and they didn't have to tell any of my friends in New York about it. It was gonna be a secret, you know, that was one thing we had to agree with. And she said, they said, we'll always love you, we're not gonna stop loving you. It's not anything we will ever believe. And I said, but I just want you to, you're gonna come and visit, I want you to be close to the kid. Yes, we will, it'll be fine, take it, And so that was a big load off
They
my
didn't
mind.
really understand it.
Not at all. They didn't have a clue what I was talking about. All they knew is they didn't have to tell anybody, because I'm making my parents sound like, very shallow people, but the truth is, a lot of traditional Jewish people are very shallow, and it's a lot about show, it's a lot about, how the Pharisees, they would do in public and all that, and that was what, like, the holidays were in New York. They'd fast for Yom Kippur, and you'd make sure everybody saw how terrible you looked because you hadn't eaten or drank. It wasn't for the Lord. It really wasn't. It really wasn't. It wasn't a sincere, from the heart. It was just, let's just do it, and when can we eat? And it was the only one who my grandmother never left the house. My grandmother stayed in the house. She'd have her headache. She'd lay in bed. Nobody knew anything I knew. And then at the end of the holiday, when we go to the temple to blow the shofar, my sister, my aunts, my mother, they were all home preparing the food. And I walked to this little temple down the street with my grandma. And it was such a special time for me. Excuse me. Because it was important to her, and she knew about all of them, including my husband, that they weren't sincere or whatever. She knew, but she prayed for them and she loved them. But she was the one who did all her cooking on Friday before sundown, because she wouldn't light a stove on the Shabbos. She wouldn't press an elevator. They actually lived in an elevator button. Did you ever hear this? Where there was a lot of Jewish people, so what they did is on Sabbath, they had one elevator that was a Sabbath elevator, and it stopped on every floor all day long, up and down, so you didn't have to press the button, because that was considered work. And my grandmother is the only one. My grandfather wasn't like it, he was, But I, for some reason, which I guess I now understand, I just had that feeling I wanted to be with her. And so we do that every year together. And nobody else came. My father was the only one. He was at the shul already. I say shul, that's temple. And it was this little place. I can see it now. Anyway, I came down and, my parents would say, you're such a good girl to do that to him. But I wasn't really doing it to be a good girl. I was doing it because I loved her so much. It wasn't the Lord. It wasn't God. That wasn't, it was, of course, but I didn't know. I didn't recognize that. I thought I was doing it so that my parents would be proud of me and, my grandmother.
Now, your father eventually did accept the Lord, right? And I can't remember your mother.
My mother did too, but I didn't find that out really until after she was gone. What happened is, they came and visited. They started coming. We had a Bible study at our house. They'd come and they'd ask questions. My father would play the devil's advocate, and the man teaching the study was wonderful. They were so wonderful that his wife, who knew how to play the piano, took piano lessons from my mother, because she was a piano teacher, just so she could be with her and share and talk and spend time. She knew how to play the piano, but that's the kind of hearts they had, And this man, my father had emphysema. My father got, sick. They moved, that's another thing. They moved, that's the other miracle. They moved to California. Even though they wanted no part of our lives, they moved to California when he retired. And that's, I know I'm jumping around, right? Am I doing okay?
You're doing good.
But because I want to get to the important. And the husband of the woman the Bible study teacher, he made a list for my father of messianic prophecies in the the Old Testament and their fulfillment in the New Testament. Okay? My father said, thank you very much, and stuck it in the Bible that we had given him. And time went on, and Steve always shared with him, and they would get into a little, like, you know, you tell him how my father reacted to you. He loved him, but he wanted to say, you know, are you better than me? You think you're better than me because you know.
Yeah. Why should I believe what you believe? I mean, you're not better than me, and all you have to do is just accept what Jesus did for me, and then I'm going to heaven. He said, yeah, pretty
And then
much.
I could just keep on sinning.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
he said,
He says, this doesn't make any sense to me, because Judaism, like Catholicism, is religion of works, of doing things. You gotta do something. In Catholicism, you have to do penance, and Judaism, you have to do good deeds. You must work for your salvation. And as you know, Christianity is the only religion you don't work at all. There's nothing to do, it's already done. And when I try to explain it to him, it never really clicked. And we had our problems, certainly theologically, but we got along real well.
there was a lot of love.
Yeah,
And that's what got us through it, really.
yeah.
But there were, you know.
Well, yeah.
So
arguments.
eventually though,
So
just
my
before he
father-
passed
Oh,
away.
gosh.
My father was getting sicker, and it became more urgent for me that he know the Lord. And so one day, very vivid, I remember, there were two lounge chairs in their TV room, and my mother would never leave him alone. So I came and sat with him while she went shopping. So we were in the two lounge chairs, just my father and I, and he says to me, Barbara, in that closet is the Bible. He said, give me that paper that Mark Robinson gave me. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what's going to happen now? This is exciting. And we took out the paper, and he said, okay, let's read this one. And I went through them. I read the verses. He read some, I read some. And we went through all of them. And I didn't hear that, you know, kind of sarcastic stuff that he would always, you know, give Steve when he started, you know, yeah, you know. But he was quiet, and he was listening, and he was.
You know what, well, now was the time.
Now was the time for
Now
salvation.
was his time.
So, my mother came back from shopping, and he says to me, he goes, Lil, he goes, you know, Barbara and I just had a little Bible study. He said, so later, after she leaves, he goes, I want to go through that with you. And she said, okay, all right. And the next morning,
It clicked on him.
Right.
Yeah.
The next morning, I got a phone call from my father, and he was in tears. And I heard him, he goes, don't get worried, I'm okay. He said, but
It's true, Barbara.
He said
It's
to me,
true.
it's true,
It's
Barbara.
really true.
It's true. Everything you said is true. And I see it so clearly now. And with that, he used me. And we lived a few minutes from each other. He got in the car, drove to my father's house because he wanted to be sure it was true. And he wanted to pray with him. And he wanted to, you know, seal the deal, so to speak. And it was just the most wonderful thing I ever heard in my life. And he meant it. It was real. He only lived 3 months after that.
1 month.
He lived 3 months after that. We always do this, and I have no way of proving it.
2 months. I'll give you 2.
All right. The point was, it was, and he was of sound mind. He, you know, there was nothing up. But he, every time we were together after that, until he did pass away, it was, you know, always praying, always sharing, always wanting to talk. I mean, he couldn't get enough, and it was just the greatest gift that I can think of that the Lord could have given me before he took my father. And it was wonderful. Then he was
Yeah, I'm sick, and it was Easter
he
Sunday.
got sick. He was in the hospital. It was Easter Sunday. My daughter was in school out of town. She had come in to see Grandpa for Easter, and we were in the hospital. And that night, out to eat. And he said, just bring me back a key lime pie. That was his favorite dessert. And so before we left the room, though, he called Stephen. Not me, he called Steve. And he said, Steve, he died. How did he say it too? He died for his sin. He goes, for all the past sins, for the present sin,
Yeah, he
for
was
the
giving
future
me a little
sins. He
Bible
was
study.
giving him a study.
And it was wonderful to hear.
And he
You
said
know,
those
it's
words.
true, it's true. He died for our
and
sins,
he
past,
said,
present, future.
Isn't it?
This is on
Isn't,
Easter Sunday.
this was the night before Easter.
He passed away
And it
that
was,
night.
yeah, and he said, and Steve said to him, I know, Grandpa, I know, you know. And it was just so wonderful. And we left, and the next day I got the call from the hospital
Passed away.
that he had passed away. And,
1 month later.
no, that's not the night he accepted. He was in the hospital.
No, I know that. I know that, but it was like 1 month. Anyway, the Lord took him.
The Lord took him, and, you know, it was, I got the call, and I called Steve, and I said, Steve, my father is with Jesus. And it was wonderful. But then we were left with my mother, and she was so hard. First of all, unfortunately, fortunately they had been married 56 years, but unfortunately, she literally got what they call it depression, dementia brought on by depression. She went into, she just wanted to go with him, you know. And I think she always thought she was going to die first, and, you know, only the Lord knew how it had to happen. So she had a very, very hard 4 months. It was only 4 months. And, is that right?
That's correct.
And without him, I don't know how I would have gotten through it, honestly, because she was so hard to be with. And she ended up with such serious dementia that I had neighbors calling me and saying, you know what, she can't live here anymore. It's not safe. She would go in, the woman who did her hair was my friend, became my friend because my mother came in every day for a haircut. Every day. Every day. I found out, I looked in her cabinets after she passed away, and she had like 10 boxes of the same cereal, 10 cans of coffee, 10. She didn't know, and
The day of the funeral?
day of my, but that was
Day
right
before the
away.
funeral? Yeah.
Oh, but
I mean,
you're going back.
She was
Yeah, we
asking
couldn't.
where he is,
Yeah, we
and
couldn't
just
even.
screaming
We
for her
couldn't. We
husband.
couldn't wake her up. My mother never took a pill in her life, and somehow or other she got Valium from somebody, and I couldn't even wake her up to come to the, you know. But anyway, my point is, she was wandering in the streets a couple of times.
So she ended up in a nursing home. Right?
Yeah.
My daughter-in-law took her to the hospital, and they put her in a facility, just like a 72-hour care thing, you know, until we figured out what we were going to do. And it turns out that because of the nature of our lives and whatever, having her come and live with us was not the answer. And we put her in a nursing home, 3 nursing homes, because I was so sick about having to do it that it wasn't good for me. I couldn't leave her here or whatever. And they finally sat me down and said, listen, your mother's okay. You're going to get sick. Trust us. And it turned out to be a wonderful place, and the people there were just fabulous. And after she passed away there. She fell, she broke her hip, a few things happened, but they told me after she passed away that every single night she was talking to Ralph, that was my father, and she was wanting to be with him, and she wanted them to read to her from the Bible, and they even sang Christian songs to her. I didn't know any of this was going on. Nobody was telling me while it was happening. I found out about it because when she passed away, and I'm saying, oh, Steve, I pray that she knew. Oh, you don't have to pray. She knew the Lord. She knew the Lord. This is what she wanted to be with Ralph in heaven, and that was for me too, right? I mean, It was a gift,
You believe that.
another gift. And the last beautiful gift was my grandmother, who was the Jewish religious, my Bubby, that's what I called her. And my last encounter with Bubby was, I had gone into New York to see her, and we knew that she was 102 years old. And yet, her mind was very clear. But she was just, her body was failing. And I went and visited her, and we were together, and I told her about Yeshua. And she's, I won't tell you what the name she used to call him, but basically, because she knew more than I knew before. She knew that he didn't have a mother and a father. Therefore, he was a Meshumid is what they call him. And of course, we know he wasn't, so I hate to even say it. But she's there, and I'm telling her different things now about him. I'm being more bold, because this is it. And that's a lesson, basically, for us also, too, is maybe not to wait until that moment and to be a little more bold on trying to work on that. But she's looking over here while she's talking to me, and I said, Bubby, who are you looking at? What do you see? And she didn't say her name. She just said, he's preparing a place for me. Now, where is that in the Bible, guys? It's in the Bible she never read. And she used those words. I said, oh, thank you, Lord. I mean, you talk about a bedside conversion. I mean, she said it as clearly as can be, he's preparing a place for me. I said, thank you. So I've been blessed in so many ways with him. And we're married 53 years. So that's pretty good. Right? And is there anything that we're leaving out that you want to share?
Well, no, other than my mother. My
Oh.
mother gets very sick. She has cancer, right? And she calls us in. She's living in New York. And we go and see my mother. And
I brought a book with me to read to her when we were in bed together.
yeah.
And it was like a children's book on believing in
we
Jesus.
talked to her about Jesus and whatever. Never accepted anything, but she was open to it. And then Barbara led her to the Lord on New Year's Eve. It was New Year's Eve she accepted.
She accepted that.
Yeah, and then she lived what?
And then he saved her, and then
Then
he
he healed her.
She
Healed her
lived
from her
for-
cancer.
She was in her 70s,
Right.
and she ended up living to 96.
Wow.
And
And
she
she
was
moved out to California.
She came to California, lived near us. His brother came, and his brother also. We such beautiful things happened. So fortunate, so blessed. But his mother, like when she was the night before she died, the next day, we used to walk her up the steps every night. She didn't want to sit. There was a hospice bed in the house, and she goes, "You can lay there and watch TV." She tells me, "I'm not laying in that bed. I'm going to my bed." And every night, his brother, who lived with her, was up on the top of the stairs, and he and I would walk up the steps with her. And I was in front, he was in back, and she would say, "Tonight, Lord, come tonight for me." That's what she wanted of me. And so we get her up the stairs, and she had a great sense of humor. She said, one night, I think it might have been the last night, she said to him, she says, "You like living with her?" That's what they look at me, right? But what had happened before that, I was on the couch with her before we walked up the steps. I was sitting with her, and her other son was not married, and he was older, and she was worried about him. And I always felt like she was hanging on to him because she had stopped eating. It was her time to go. And I sat there with her and I said, "He's going to be okay. We're not going to throw him out of the house. We're going to live with him. If he wants that, we'll take care of him. He's not going to be alone." And she said, "You're a good daughter." Those were her words to me. And then we went
Okay.
Yeah, it went so fast. One thing we talked about in this class, Joel Rosenberg, you know who he is.
Sure.
He said that
We've met
he
Joel.
believes now there's 1 million Jewish believers, mostly in America. And we're studying Romans and Hebrews right now, and Paul talks about in Romans 11, the partial hardening of the hearts. And maybe in our lifetime we're seeing God release that.
Mm.
And then maybe
They say that there are more Christians in Israel now too.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
so it's,
Yeah.
it just things are
They're all
accelerating so
Messianic
quickly.
congregations in Israel.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
Joel Rosenberg lives in Israel.
That's even
Yeah,
really,
does
he
now,
lives in
yeah.
Jerusalem.
which is, that's gotta be, I mean, just the war going on, and then there is resistance, right, to evangelism, so we'll have to pray with that. Let's close our word of prayer, but thank you so much.
Our pleasure.
I'll say it, close us. Lord, just thank you for this time. Thank you that you worked in Steve and Barbara's lives and did miraculous things, brought people. I just thank you for the feet of those that bring the good news. And we're so indebted to the remnant of Israel that preserved knowledge of you, Yahweh, and then thankful, Lord, for your Son who died for us, that we can know him, and that he is, as we sung in church this morning, you and your Son are so faithful. Just take care of us, and you brought us here. So we just pray that you be with us this week, and that we would live for you. We pray all this in Jesus' name.
And I don't know if you go to Jerusalem, and we do several times a day. And we don't know what's going to happen.
I just wanted to tell you guys that if you know Jewish people out of the church, you know what I'm saying, we do have a testimony. It's a CD. I'm embarrassed to say, but our original recording was done so many years ago, and that's what it was. It was CDs, and you have a copy
I have
of
a
it.
copy,
Yeah,
yes.
and a few people still have CD players. I guess you can always get. But if you know any people that you'd like to share that with, I have copies of it. I just wanted to, it's kind of a nice entryway, maybe, to listen to us, if they come from the background that we came from more, it would be an easier way to start. And then, but they say Jewish people can be saved only by the Old Testament, because Jesus is totally in the Old Testament, So, thank you for letting us do this.
Thank you.